Hello Nikki, hello Transport Evolved. It's such a beautiful day, I thought I would spend it facing outwards. The BVOB meetup, the Battery Electric Vehicles of Bristol meetup that we went to at the weekend was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Highlights of it, there was a double EV family there. Someone who the husband had a Leaf that he drove, a Mark II Leaf. He had driven the Mark I Leaf and upgraded to a Mark II. And the wife drove a Zoe, which was absolutely amazing. The do-it-yourself electric bike was absolutely brilliant with the perspex over the batteries, so you could see the batteries that were there. Absolutely amazing. Old EVs, I see what you're saying, that it would be better for people to drive one of them than a petrol car, but we have problems convincing people to drive the modern EVs that are available today that go twice as far and are twice as safe and have twice as much performance. How on earth are you going to convince someone to go from a Golf or a Clio that drives petrol to a G-Wiz or a Think? I think time would be better spent convincing those people to go to either a modern EV or a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. Leading by example, yes, I do think politicians should lead by example, and I can't think of any UK politicians that drive an electric car as their primary car. I know there have been a few of them who've had spins in them, like Theresa May. I think she got a spin in the XL1 when it was on a tour in London, and so they've had trials in it, but I don't think any of them drive them themselves. The only one that jumps to mind is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I believe, if he is still the governor of California, sorry, I don't tend to keep up that much with US politics, but he used to drive, or still does drive, a hydrogen-powered, custom-made Hummer, I believe. But my view on politicians is that if you become a politician, you should have certain rules placed on you, which require you to use public services. So I fully believe that one of those rules should be politicians have to use public transport, or they have to drive some form of renewable powered transportation. So they would then have a vested interest in making public transport systems work, or making the switch to electrified transport. A politician should have to send their kids to a state school in the UK, not to a public school, which is a private school in the UK. It's old wordy reasons, don't worry about it. But they should be forced to use the government schooling system for their children, because then they have a vested interest in making it better. And I think that really does apply to EVs. If we said all politicians have to use public transport or drive an EV, then suddenly I imagine public transport around the country would get huge amounts of investment, and there'd be brilliant subsidies on EVs, and the price would come down, and there'd be massive conversion to it. But will it happen? Probably not. What did I want to talk to you about? It was something you mentioned, actually. In at BVOB, we had 2 or 3 homemade electric vehicles that turned up, and it's got me thinking, and it's something I've been thinking about for a while, is should more people build their own electric cars? Now, my reasoning behind it is this. If you're thinking of buying a modern electric car, say a £26,000 Nissan Leaf, if you have all of that money in your bank account, and I understand a lot of people don't, and I didn't when I bought a Leaf, I bought it on a lease hire purchase scheme, but if you have all that money in your account, you could buy the parts for a do-it-yourself EV that will outperform the manufacturer-made one. And that kind of makes sense, because you're not having to pay for the salary of the people who sold it to you, the big building it's being housed in, the manufacturing of it, and the whole supply chain. You're not paying for the salaries involved in that, you're just buying components. So you could build a Nissan Leaf comparable car for the same price that outperformed it, had a larger range, and I saw this quite a lot when I was in Switzerland last year for the end of the wave. A lot of the homemade cars there was a little old Renault Clio type thing, very small, that had a 200-mile range, because they had chosen to spend more money on the batteries than a manufacturer would. Personally, I'd love a little hot rod type car that ran on batteries, because I think the dissonance between the sound you imagine a hot rod to make and then it gliding past very fast and silently would be amazing. But maybe that's just me. And it's something that I'm tempted to have a go at myself in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you know, when I've actually got money. Anyway, Nikki, I shall see you tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, hump day of the week. I hope Transport Evolved is having a lovely week in your first 2 days this week, and I will speak to you all soon. Goodbye.